Part 1. The hook. Picture a cola in your mind. It's dark, caramel-colored, and a taste that feels completely familiar. That deep brown color isn't just for looks. It's a promise of a specific, sweet taste. Our brains have been trained to expect it, to trust it. But in 1992, Pepsi decided to break that fundamental promise. They planned to challenge the very identity of their most famous drink. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to convince the world that cola could be this. A drink that looked like pure water but tasted like Pepsi. This is the story of Crystal Pepsi, a product that launched as an instant, must-try sensation. It was a $450 million psychological experiment that went wrong in public. A costly lesson in what happens when you ignore human nature. So how did one of the biggest brands in the world get it so right and then so disastrously wrong? The failure was as spectacular as its launch. The answer isn't just about business, it's a fascinating lesson in psychology. It reveals a deep and surprising truth about how our own minds work. Part 2. The Clear Craze of the 90s. To understand this epic failure, you first have to understand the early 1990s. It was a time of cultural change and new consumer attitudes. A new obsession was sweeping across the nation. The idea of purity. After the excess of the 80s, people wanted things that felt clean. Consumers were demanding products that seemed more natural and healthy. They believed less was more, and they bought products that reflected that. And in the world of marketing, the color of purity was undeniably clear. It became a powerful symbol for being wholesome and modern. Suddenly, companies were launching clear versions of everything you could imagine. From soap and deodorant to even experimental clear gasoline. The marketing logic was simple and powerful. If a product was clear, people would subconsciously believe it was better and healthier for them. Inside PepsiCo headquarters, an executive named David Novak saw this trend. He noticed the massive success of the Clear Craze. And that's when he had a brilliant and ultimately dangerous idea. Why not apply this trend to the world of cola? On paper, the strategy seemed perfect and unstoppable. It would have the beloved taste of cola with the pure look of spring water. They believed they had created the ultimate guilt-free soda. It seemed like there was absolutely no way this idea could fail. The project was immediately greenlit, and the formula was quickly developed. Pepsi prepared to go to war for this new product category. They were about to unleash one of the most expensive and aggressive marketing campaigns ever. The hype would be inescapable. The stage was now set for the grand arrival of a true beverage legend. The world had no idea what was coming. Part 3. The Hype Machine. Pepsi didn't just launch Crystal Pepsi. They unleashed it like a force of nature. It was designed to be the biggest product launch of the decade. The centerpiece of this massive campaign was an expensive ad during the 1993 Super Bowl. The perfect place to capture the nation's attention. Set to the powerful and optimistic chords of Van Halen's famous song, Right Now. The music itself was a statement of change and modernity. The ad was a true masterpiece of marketing. It brilliantly sold an idea of the future, not just a simple soft drink. The message was powerful and simple. The future is finally here, and it is crystal clear. This was the drink for a new generation. And what was the public's reaction to all this hype? It worked unbelievably well, exceeding even Pepsi's wildest expectations. People were intensely curious about this strange new drink. The novelty factor made it the most talked-about product of the year. In its very first year, Crystal Pepsi managed to capture a full 2% of the U.S. soft drink market, an almost unheard-of number for a new entry. This translated to nearly $475 million in sales, a staggering figure that pointed towards a massive, long-term success. From the outside, it looked like Pepsi had a certified blockbuster on its hands. It seemed they had successfully created a whole new category. But beneath this incredible success story, a psychological time bomb was quietly ticking. The product had a hidden, fatal flaw. And that bomb was just about to go off, with devastating and costly consequences. The crash would be as spectacular as the launch. Part 4. The psychological mismatch. The product's biggest and most fatal flaw was a psychological concept. It's called cognitive dissonance, a conflict in the brain. For our entire lives, our brains have been trained to make a simple connection. Dark color means cola taste. It's an automatic association. When someone looked at a glass of Crystal Pepsi, their eyes saw one thing. They registered the clear liquid as water or maybe lemon lime. But their taste buds experienced something completely different. This sensory conflict made the brain feel that something was deeply wrong. Imagine biting into a bright red apple and having it taste exactly like a banana. The experience would be jarring and unpleasant. That's what happened with Crystal Pepsi. People said it just didn't taste right, even if they couldn't explain exactly why. The second problem was the taste itself. To get the clear look, they had to remove certain ingredients, which slightly changed the formula. It wasn't exactly the classic Pepsi taste people knew and loved. This subtle difference only added to the consumer's growing confusion. No one was quite sure what this drink was supposed to be. Was it a new kind of soda, or was it just a gimmick? But the final, decisive nail in the coffin came from Pepsi's oldest rival. Coca-Cola was watching, and they decided to act. Seeing Pepsi's initial success, the team at Coke panicked. They decided to play dirty with a move of pure corporate sabotage. They rushed to launch their very own clear drink, a diet soda called Tab Clear. But this was no ordinary product launch. Here is the evil genius part of their plan. They intentionally made Tab Clear taste bad to sour the public on the entire idea. It was a corporate kamikaze mission, a true suicide run. The product was designed from the start to fail miserably. Coke's goal wasn't to succeed with their own clear drink. It was to poison the well and kill the entire clear cola category for everyone. Their marketing head at the time later admitted the whole plan in an interview. He proudly stated their goal was to kill Crystal Pepsi. And their cynical, brilliant, and ruthless plan worked to perfection. It accelerated the downfall of their competitor's prized new product. Consumers, who were already confused, tried the terrible-tasting Tab Clear. They hated it and gave up on the idea of clear colas entirely. And just like that, the Clear Craze was officially over. Crystal Pepsi, the category's flagship product, became its biggest casualty. The fall from the top of the market would be swift, brutal, and historic. It became a legendary cautionary tale for marketers everywhere. Part 5. The Crash and Legacy. After the initial hype wore off, Crystal Pepsi's sales didn't just decline, they completely fell off a cliff. The momentum was gone. The novelty was gone, the psychological confusion had set in for good, and the competition sabotage plan had worked perfectly. Store shelves that were once empty were now overflowing with unsold Crystal Pepsi. It went from a must-have item to a clearance bin product. By early 1995, just 2 short years after its massive launch, it was officially discontinued. It vanished as quickly as it had appeared. It became a $450 million ghost, haunting the aisles of marketing history, a reminder of a huge bet that simply didn't pay off. So what is the multi-million-dollar lesson we can learn from this? The failure of Crystal Pepsi teaches us 3 very important things. Lesson 1. Don't break core sensory expectations. What we see fundamentally defines what we expect to taste, and you can't fight that. If you break that sacred link between sight and taste, you don't create intrigue. You only create confusion and disappointment. Lesson 2. A gimmick is not a real selling point. Pepsi sold the idea of clarity, but that's not a reason to keep buying a product. Clarity isn't a flavor or a tangible benefit. After the first curious purchase, there was no reason for customers to come back for more. Was it healthier for you? No, it still had the same sugar as regular Pepsi. The central marketing message was ultimately hollow. And lesson 3. Authenticity is everything. The drink suffered from a massive identity crisis, and nobody knew what it stood for. It tried to be a pure, new-age health drink and a classic sugary indulgence at once. In trying to be everything, it became nothing. But the story doesn't quite end there in failure. Decades later, a funny and unexpected thing happened in the age of the internet. The kids who remembered the mystery of Crystal Pepsi from the 90s all grew up. They held on to a strange, nostalgic memory of the drink. Fueled by this powerful nostalgia, a huge online movement began. Passionate fans started petitions demanding its return. People wanted to taste the legendary failure for themselves. The drink that was so famous because it shouldn't have existed. And for a few limited-time runs in the 2000s, Pepsi listened to the fans. They actually brought the infamous drink back to store shelves. The failed product had made an incredible transformation. It had become a beloved, iconic, and highly sought-after cult classic. Its spectacular, high-profile failure is precisely what made it so famous. Its flawed legacy is what made it so memorable to millions. It proves that sometimes, even in a colossal failure, a brand can find a legendary and long-lasting success years later. The ghost of the 90s had returned to the marketplace, but this time it wasn't here to scare investors. It was here to entertain fans. It became a celebration of a time when giant companies were still bold, a time when they were willing to fail in a spectacular way. It was a fitting tribute to one of the weirdest and most wonderful drinks ever created, a true icon of marketing history. And it gave a whole new generation of soda drinkers a chance to taste the confusion. They could finally understand what all the fuss was about. The final chapter in the long Crystal Pepsi story wasn't one of failure. It was a surprising, nostalgic, and ultimately satisfying triumph. Part 6. Conclusion. In the end, the Crystal Pepsi saga is so much more than a business school case study. It's a story about human nature itself. It's a perfect window into the weird, wonderful, and often irrational world of our own minds. It shows how easily our senses can be tricked. It proves that what we think about a product matters just as much as the product itself. Perception truly can become reality. Our deep-seated expectations, our 5 senses, and our powerful memories are all baked into the experience of trying something new. Pepsi bet nearly $500 million that they could change our minds about cola. They bet they could rewire our brains with marketing. But they learned a very hard and very expensive lesson. Some mental connections are just too ancient and too deep to break. The most powerful marketing campaign in the world couldn't overcome simple human psychology. Our brains trusted our eyes, not the advertising. So the next time you see a bizarre new product on the supermarket shelf, take a moment to think about the challenge it faces. Remember the ghost of Crystal Pepsi and the expensive lesson it taught the entire world about the power of the human mind. What do you think of this story? Did you ever get the chance to try Crystal Pepsi yourself? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Thanks so much for watching.